Part of what we're going to do. I don't know whether you need this. Does this help? Is this?
Yeah.
Working?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Larry Farmer. I'm the faculty at the Brigham Young University Law School. I teach in a couple of areas that are somewhat esoteric. One is computer-based expert systems, practice systems. It's an outgrowth of a project we've been working on for quite a while, but keeps me involved with technology. The other is legal interviewing and counseling, which would seem to be a touch incongruent with the first, but I have enjoyed teaching that course and bringing some technological innovations, at least on our part, to the effort to teach skills instruction at least in the interviewing and counseling area. So what I'd like to do today is to give you an overview of some problems that we encountered in trying to teach skills instruction. Some of them historical, some current, and the technological solutions that we brought to bear to overcome those problems in teaching this particular course. The background for the problem is that as follows. I've had a chance in the 90s to observe about 800 lawyer-client consultations, and in many of those cases observe students that I had previously taught interviewing and counseling skills. After they've been out in practice 5, 10 years, and very quickly discovered that my method of teaching wasn't, it seemed to be effective at the time, but it had no lasting impact on most of these students. On a few it did, but on the majority of them that I observed, they seemed to have retained very little from what they learned out of the course when I later saw them interviewing and counseling clients. So that gave me an existential crisis of some sort. What is it I'm doing with my time? And so I went back to the drawing board, and I and a colleague, we did a lot of research on skills instruction and discovered that what I had intuitively developed as a method for teaching the course seemed not to be congruent with the best findings of the social science research on skills instruction. What I ultimately came to was some recent research by Anders Ericsson on deliberate practice. It's a larger body of work on how experts acquire expertise and what expertise is and what are the characteristics of people that have expertise. And with the hope that my students could become experts in interviewing and counseling skill and legal practice, I thought I would adopt his model of what he calls deliberate practice. The elements of deliberate practice are as follows. And each element takes a rigorous application for the skill to be learned. And a lot of this comes out of performing arts, out of athletics, and research on the acquisition of mathematical skills, etc. Just a broad range of research on how expertise is acquired. And Ericsson concluded that a common element in all of these, in the background of these experts, is that they had engaged in for many of these skills that were most analogous to interviewing and counseling, in this deliberate practice methodology. So it's to identify a practice task, the first step, but that task should be an incremental task. It should be based on the current level of understanding, and it should ratchet the person up a bit with respect to the overall target skill set. So it shouldn't be sort of the final skill, but some sequence of tasks that are carefully crafted to get you from A to B over time. And then to practice the task. And by practice, he means a rigorous, disciplined task in which the person concentrates focuses on it, prepares well for it, comes into the task with goals and objectives in mind, and is really intent on learning the skill that they're practicing in that task. So clearly identified skill, a highly motivated, does this sound like a third-year law student? Highly motivated person, intent on learning the skill, and well prepared for the practice exercise. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like a third-year law student. We implemented deliberate practice. The first year that I did it, lots of deliberate practice exercises, I could tell that I hadn't found the key to proper motivation yet. And then, after the task was over, there was, for the task, the practice to be effective and to start making synaptic connections in the brain and increasing the density of the connections in the part of the brain that governs interviewing and counseling skill, we needed to have some other things besides the focus during the task. That was a concerted effort to analyze what happened, to obtain informative feedback, and then to think about it, identify what went wrong, what went well, to think it through, and then come up with some plan for repeating the task with the error corrections in it, and sort of iteratively going through that process until they arrived at some level of proficiency that was targeted. Well, there are problems all along the way in this process that I discovered with what I was doing in the past. One was I didn't have enough practice. Had 4 practice exercises during the semester. I now have 22, and they're all more rigorous than the 4 that I previously had. The practice tasks are now more microscopic in terms of their focus on individual subcomponents of skills. I've gone through the process of analyzing the skill set and breaking it down. This is all pedagogical, but it leads to the technological issues that we're here to explore. To get the students motivated for the task, I had to find some way of having them perceive that this was important, that it might affect their grade in the class. And when you have a number of students all doing simultaneous exercises, or even if they're doing out-of-class exercises, a large number of them, unless they're observed, unless there's feedback, unless there's some notion that this is important, they're not going to put the energy into it necessary to really eventually burn in enough connections to retain this stuff, even if they learn it in the short term. So, but the principal problem was here, the analysis of the experience. There is a notion of reflective analysis or reflective practice or reflection and action that came out of Schoen's writing, which I think is largely was a largely incorrect analysis on his part. But reflection and action turns out to be reflection on action, and it's always after the fact. What he called reflection and action, I think, is more simply creativity and adjusting to the ongoing circumstances of the task. But, so the problem was, how do you get somebody to go in and practice a skill that they don't yet have a good handle on, and ask them to sort of have this metacognitive process going on at the same time, where they're analyzing their performance. At the same time, they're trying to think through how to perform and to perform well. Well, the research, in fact, some very interesting recent neuropsychology research suggests that if the tasks are too closely related, they're using the same areas of the brain, that you get more like time slicing than parallel processing, and that each task interferes with the other. So to ask a person to practice and to observe their practice at the same time is overloading the learning process. So we had to come up with a way to capture the practice so they could later review it, and during the practice focus on the performance. Focus on what they had learned trying to accomplish a skill performance without worrying about, did I do it right? I should make a mental note that I did this wrong so that I can later write it in my reflective analysis. And then this step, let me get this thing underway here. Right here, of doing their performance evaluation, became a challenge then. If you do it after the fact, 90% of what's happened during the exercise they've forgotten and have no memory of. And the other 20% is probably largely distorted by either ego threat or various kinds of concerns that the individual might have about their performance, and their inability to spend time and dwell on what happened while they were performing would interfere with their capacity later to reflect on it and to analyze it. And basically, they would only remember the most egregious things that happened as far as error correction, and probably not remember them particularly well. And in addition, impossible for me or a TA to review what they've done. Now, the obvious answer for this is send them all off to our studio and videotape every exercise, but it isn't an obvious answer. The problem is that these exercises that consume too much resource, thousands of hours of taping, if all the skills classes did that, it would overwhelm the video recording studio at the law school. So what we sought to do was to find a way to simultaneously capture by the increased number of practice exercises. And we did that in a couple of ways. One, right here, if you're going to have 22 exercises, how can you ask the students to learn 22 different fact patterns? Okay? During the semester, or swap fact patterns in and out, and to motivate them to learn them well. Well, the first thing we did then that involved technology in this process was to come up with, if I can find it here, what's called an individual legal problem. I'll get it. Individual legal problems are legal problems the students carry with them throughout the semester. We have a library of legal problems. The student goes into that library, picks one out, and then their legal problem is posted on the course website as a legal problem that that student will have when you come to interview or counsel. In this case, Emily Jensen. There's a description of her problem, an appointments memo, very well developed problems. The students are asked to customize them. There's a legal memorandum applying the law to the problem so that for counseling purposes the students rely on that as the universal law that they're going to use to counsel this person.
Who wrote those individual legal problems?
It took a while. The students drafted them over time. Now I have a TA this summer who's going to spend a month adding new legal problems, upgrading them. We should have a good 30, 35 legal problems of different types available by the end of the summer. So the first use of technology was to find a way for each student to have a legal problem and then to communicate that to all of the other students when they needed it. So for a given exercise, you're paired with so-and-so, with a student X, student that you go to the website, you find student X's legal problem, and you're supposed to, for this exercise, have reviewed, say it's a counseling problem, so you've reviewed the problem description, the legal memorandum, and the counseling memorandum, all of those documents, and come prepared to counsel that student. Well, back to the motivation problem, how do you motivate students to do that much preparation in advance of an exercise, and I'll address that in a moment. Then there is one other element to this. In preparing for the exercise, they have to do two things. They have instructions for the exercise. Let's take this exercise. This is another website. This is a Sharepoint server site that gives us the ability to set up libraries for students so they can post materials, so they can get materials. It controls the distribution of materials during the course. For example, this is these are instructions for a specific exercise and the pairings for the student pairings for that exercise. So students can download at any time instructions for the exercise. But in addition, there's an evaluation template for the exercise that tells them what it is that they're going to need to look at in their performance. The evaluation template takes the form of a table with columns for counter positions in a video recording of the exercise, topics that they're to look at, which are listed in the center column. This is a complete consultation, so it's largely a structural exercise. So I list the structural elements I want them to look at, and then a place to comment on their performance. So what we tried to do was come up with templates that students could access that would structure the analytical process and resources to draw upon to prepare for the exercise. So you can see that each exercise takes about an hour of preparation, and then actually for many of them only 15 minutes, well, a half hour to 40 minutes to do, and then an hour to an hour and a half of post-exercise evaluation. And the technical support comes in two ways. One is the website for distributing the legal problems, and the other is the Sharepoint site for making available the instructions and the templates that the students will use. Everything's done electronically, and all submissions are electronic in this case. I'll show you in a minute how the students do that. But coming back to the problem then, didn't work last time, so I thought I could push it safely this time. So where's the technology in this? The first problem is getting the exercises, getting people to have large number of students, having to exchange information and to know what the others are doing. Some background on that, all of our students have a notebook of known capacity because they're required as entering students, first year 1Ls, to come with a specific notebook, one of two notebooks, and it has to have a certain capacity in terms of processor speed and memory and hard drive space and that sort of thing. Then, like most law schools, they have unlimited access to a high-speed Ethernet connection from which they can get to the Sharepoint site, to the course website. Then we acquired 44 top-of-the-line web cameras so that we could make them available to students, both through the law library and through our media services, so that they could be checked out as reserve items or available. And I mentioned the Sharepoint site already, and then we'll get to this one in a moment, the performance analysis tool. Okay, let's take a look at the web cameras. This comes to the issue of motivation. What we discovered quite serendipitously was that if you recorded student performance, every performance, they took the performance much more seriously and they came in prepared. It was just a function of being on camera. Two things. One, being on camera, and the fact that as soon as they recorded that performance, it was uploaded to the Sharepoint site and immediately available to the instructor or to the TA for review. And so and that they would later review their own performance. So everything they did during the semester was recorded, whether it was in class or out of class. Some exercises were recorded in the production studio, but most were recorded in class. Now, what you can see here is what we acquired were web cameras. We put them in cases, and had the cases placed on carts that were delivered to the classroom at the beginning of class if we're going to have an exercise. And then, for example, here's an image of the carts waiting in the classroom at the beginning of class. And then when the students would come to class, they would simply go to the cart, grab a case, set up a web camera like this one, 2 of them. You can see there's a web camera here, a web camera here. This one points at her, this one points at him. And that process on a day when we're doing exercises consumed 5 minutes total. Because early in the semester, the students installed the software necessary to run the web cameras. They were trained on it. It turns out that law students, not all but most, are already quite remarkably proficient and with technology, at least at some level. And they were able to learn this. We haven't had any student who couldn't do this process in 5 minutes at the beginning of class. Come in, get a camera, get set up, get their image on the screen, and get ready to click the record button when the exercise started. So this is the process. What you have, here's some illustrations of it. This is from one class where I just went around and took some pictures of the students. When we had an exercise, we'd have a Monday class that was theory, preparing them for the topic of the week. The rest of the week would be spent in practice. For example, if we're doing something like timeline interviewing, we would talk about timelines on Monday and show examples of timelines. We might do a little interactive role-playing in class. But on Wednesday and Friday, when they came to class, their only task was to set up and do a timeline exercise with an exercise partner. And so each partner would come in. This person would have studied his legal problem and with respect to the timeline instructions and come in prepared to do the timeline exercise, and in reverse, he would have studied John's legal problem and come in and been prepared to do that. So what's interesting is when you have this image on the screen, that suddenly made the students serious. Before, when I would have students doing these exercises without the video, you'd walk around and you had a sense, are they really engaged in this? Sometimes you'd find out they weren't engaged at all in it. They were talking about the weather or something else. What I found with the video is that when I walked around the room, they never noticed me. Now, later, when I look at their exercise, I'd see myself walking behind them. And I'd watch in their eyes. They never even saw me go by. They would get so engaged in the exercise that they became oblivious to what else was going on in the room. In fact, one day we had Microsoft help fund this project. They sent a video team in to record for a little promotional video for their own purposes. And we had camera people and producers all over the room, and yet these students, I went back and looked at those exercises, they were all just as engaged as they ever were, with cameras coming up behind them and in front of them. They're already used to being on camera, so it wasn't a big deal. Yes?
Is it a problem with the audio having so many people in the same room?
It is. It is. It isn't an impossible situation, but it does distort the quality of the audio. These cameras have spectacular microphones in them, and they pick up the near sound a lot better, and they fade out the distant sounds. And so it's workable, but I've designed a new classroom that handles the audio. I haven't got the dean to fund it yet.
Problem.
We're thinking about doing something along these lines one of the things we were considering is actually signing out these cameras to students and letting them do it on their own time and scheduling things. So the two questions I have that are related is, have you thought of doing that and just allowing the students to schedule with their partner when they're going to do these things and set it up versus doing it in the classroom? And the second part of that question is, do you see any barriers to that? Like you said, a lot of them are tech savvy anyway, and apparently you give them some training. You see it as being a technological feat that they just can't handle.
They could take it out on their own?
Yeah.
Yes, they could. In fact, a colleague, Jerry Williams, who teaches negotiation, does that. His exercises are out of class, and we have 22 cameras at circulation on reserve. Students can come check them out for 2 hours, check out one case, one of the students in a pair. They go off to a study room somewhere and record their exercise and return the cameras. We had another student that took the class, his negotiation class, really liked that technology, was in moot court competition or in some sort of trial advocacy competition, really undertook to rigorously apply this deliberate practice concept to that, went on to win a national competition. After hours and hours of practice in front of his web camera in the study room, he really took to the method and improved it to a certain extent, yes.
What do you do about security? Can everybody watch everyone else's tape?
No, the Sharepoint site is password protected, and each student has their individual password, and they have their individual document libraries where they post their exercises. So Sharepoint is a out-of-the-box kind of application that's just perfect for this kind of thing.
It's sort of an FTP center?
It's a website designed for collaborative, it's collaborative workspace kind of website. You can set up, I'll show you the Sharepoint site in a minute, I've got it up here. But it allows a student to log in, they can only get to their library and to shared libraries. And then we're putting in fact this year we just put in we're putting in a whole new server network at the law school. Upgrading our network, putting in a whole set of servers. The law school is allocated, we got a grant to pay for our part of it, so they were generous to accept the money. We've got a blade in the new server array that's dedicated to our classes. It has a dual processor, 3.6 gigahertz. We've got a half a terabyte of data space on the disk array, fiber optic connections. The whole thing is designed for rapid movement of video across the network, and then it's all stored in a SQL database. SharePoint has a background SQL database on it.
Do they have the ability to share their preparation and stuff like that with other students or other people through SharePoint?
They can. We have common areas where you can post things, but it's so individual because each time there's only one student in the class with a particular legal problem you're working on for that exercise. So the exercises are specific to a task, and then they have to make it specific to a specific legal problem that they have.
Are they using that's a Logitech Orbital cam? They're using the Logitech software to download, or is this?
No,
I mean,
well, Logitech, we're using, last year we used OneNote. Microsoft granted us 200 licenses to OneNote, which has a terrific video capture utility built into it. All they do is click record, click stop. It's already named the file, compressed it, saved it in a specific location. They just have to find it and upload it to the network. We're now building our own.
They'll save it onto the network.
Pardon?
That software will save it onto the network.
No, they have to save it to the network. But SharePoint is very simple. They just log into their SharePoint site, puts them in their library. They click upload, find the document, and it's uploaded for them.
In what format the files are saved, the video files?
Say that again?
In what format you are saving the video files?
This year we saved them as WMV files with about 768 kilobits per second compression. about 30 to 50 megabytes every 15 minutes. We have video files as large as 300 megabytes and as small as 30 to 25 megabytes, depending on the exercise. The Sharepoint server can be set up in the SQL database to handle file sizes up to 1 gigabyte in size. We've uploaded some that are 500 megabytes. And with a high-speed wireless network, and they also have LAN connection, none of that was a problem. And so the task is, first, capture the video. Second, distribute it so that we can have access to it. I've got a little diagram here. Let me illustrate. I've covered this, but let me illustrate what happened. This is the student process of recording a video on their PCs. Then they simply log into the Sharepoint site, and I'll show you that. Okay, this is the one I was showing you earlier. If you go to Document Libraries, see a library for each student. And the students can, let's go into Wendy Burt's library. These are her submissions over the semester. And if you look on the left, right, let's go right on here, probably not. You'll see the icons. Some of them are documents analyzing what she did, and others are video files of a specific exercise. And you get down to exercise 22. Not all exercises, you can see some numbers are skipped here because some exercises were simply in-class group exercises that we didn't record. So there are about 15 of these that are recorded, maybe 16 that are recorded, reviewed exercises. And for each exercise, they have to submit both an evaluation, as you see here, and an analysis. Now you'll notice, for example, right here, if I take this one, this is her exercise. With comments in it, both her comments and my comments. She took 60 minutes to review the exercise. And she went through filling out a table of events and then did a post-exercise analysis, and then I provided my comments and reposted it on the Sharepoint site. Now notice the Sharepoint site works very nicely with Word. You just click on it on the network, and it opens the document in your Word document in Word on your computer. And then when you save it, it saves it back to the Sharepoint site, and it creates Sharepoint apparently doesn't work with my mouse or something. Do you have a question while I'm figuring out what I'm doing?
How long are these videos typically, and so how long do you end up having to spend reviewing files of videos?
The videos are 15 minutes to 50 minutes long. We have 4 out-of-class exercises that are 50 minutes long, and about 12, 14 in-class exercises that are 15 minutes long each.
And then you have how many students?
It varies. First semester we had 25. Last semester, being overwhelmed, I cut it down to 12. Next year, I've scheduled a class of 16 each semester. What you raised is a question that became a problem. Using Windows Media Player and dragging the scrubber and trying to find where you're at got to be a problem in terms of their time and my time. And the volume of work that we had to do to keep up with this. We tried to develop a new tool to expedite the analysis of these videos, both on the student end, to make improve the quality of the analysis, at the same time expedite it, to make it more efficient. So what we've got here, let me just finish this. They upload to the network, store it on the network, instructor can access it. Okay, one thing that I found, well, here are three things that we found as a result of this. One, students can concentrate on exercise performance without trying to concurrently assess and remember the details of their performance. I had one student last fall semester who was a diligent, reflective practice person. She reflected on everything she did, and she learned. And it was apparent she was a very confident, capable student. And then she took the class, and later in the semester, her computer had a malfunction. It was a strange one because with the concurrent recordings, we get backup every time. Each student records their performance and then their partner's performance. And so you have to have both of them go wrong at the same time. Well, this is the only instance where that happened. We had no recording of what she did. She wrote me a long email saying, "We have ruined her." That she had been a reflective person and highly capable of doing reflective analysis before she came to the class. Having discovered that by capturing it, her analysis was so much better that it was a waste of time for her to reflect on what happened. Because one, she didn't try and make mental notes while she was doing the performance, and two, what little she could remember would be a little worth compared to what her analysis would be if she had the video. I asked her to do the analysis anyway, and she did a fine job. But the other thing we learned is that the students come in better motivated. They really take this seriously. I would say this last semester I had one student, it's a pass-fail course, who got a low pass for lack of motivation, for not preparing well. And you can tell when they don't prepare well. You've got the darn video. You can look at it and get back to it and say, look, things aren't going well for you. Let's talk about it. And he had an outside job, and they were going to hire him at the end of the third-year student, end of the semester. He said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of this course with a pass. And he got a low pass, just barely. The rest of them were highly motivated.
Okay. This is a hard question to ask. Can you dig deeper? Why does being videotaped make them more motivated, besides the obvious surface answer of they're on tape? I mean, why does that?
I don't know. I've watched them. Part of it is law students are competitive, but the other part came up in a discussion the other day. It was in the book on open source that I was reading. Why do people contribute to open source?
Because other people will look at it and say they're...
Yeah. Or they'll look at it and say, I know how to do this. I've learned. It's probably painful to go back and look at a sloppy performance, even if you knew that you could do better, perhaps. For whatever reason, once they know they're both going to review it, we're going to review it, TA, fellow student, peer student might see it, they're not going to take a chance. They're at least going to try in the room if they haven't prepared well.
What about the Hawthorne effect, just the fact that they're involved in the experiment?
Well, we've done it the last 2 semesters. The second semester, it was no experiment. I don't know. I don't know how long the Hawthorne effect was on. Pardon?
It was new for your students.
I'd say that again.
New for your students.
Yeah, it is new for them. Well, some of them were in the negotiation class one semester and came to this class the next semester. I think it is more, if it happened in every class, maybe they would learn to sandbag video. But in this case, they're not doing it yet. And then the reflective evaluations, I used to have to do an exercise and sit them down and take 10 minutes and write as fast as you can about what happened while they still remembered it. Now they don't. The whole class, the exercise class, is devoted to exercises. And they go out and they review it later. They spend an hour. And we set a time limit on it. You don't have to spend more than an hour, but you need to complete the exercise. And if it takes up to an hour, you need to use it. Okay. Well, getting to the question then, so the technologies we've dealt with here, one is the web cameras for capturing video to allow for post-exercise evaluation, increase the motivation of students. Sharepoint site for to handle the logistics of moving all these massive video files around. And then 3 is some way to do the analysis. I showed you that our first approach was to develop templates that we gave to them to do the analysis. And they had to figure out how to use media player as efficiently as they could, keep them up both at the same time, moving back and forth, controlling the scrubber, dragging it to a certain point. So what we've come up with is a project to develop what we call a performance analysis tool that allows us to record button sets, to create button sets that have definitions, and if you hover over them, the definition will pop up. It's part of the instructions for the exercise. And these button sets these buttons can be defined to pause the video, to jump back 5 seconds, and then record until you tag it with an end time. And so they can, and basically with the button sets now we can say, look, here are the categories of analysis we want you to do on your video. And go through it and keep these in mind and go through it several times. It's a 15-minute video, tagging these button sets. And then in this area they can annotate, add their analysis and their comments to the performance, or to that, we call it a tagged event, to that tagged event or that event. So they're tagging events in the video, and the tool includes the capacity to go back and play any event at any time just by clicking on it. And so it creates a metadata file, an XML file, that they then post on their Sharepoint site. This is all for next year. Post on the Sharepoint site that we can download, and then as long as we have the video, it isn't a video editor, it's a video indexer. So the video is posted, they do their analysis, post this little XML file, we load it into the tool, and it will automatically find their video and then play any clip in their clips list, in this events list, and allow us to look at precisely what they are looking at when they made their observation, and also to make additional observations that then get sent back to them. You'll notice that each observation is tagged as to who made the observation. So it is a way of making the process sort of all in the same tool. We're adding video capture to this tool as well. So students have one software package to capture their performance, to analyze it, and then to get feedback on it.
Can you read some of those observations? Because I can't, even with my bad eyes, I can't see it from this.
This one, this is about a T-funnel. A T-funnel is a topical probe in an interviewing process. T-funnel should have started with an open question. The addition of what it looks like narrows the question quite significantly. How about, please tell me more about the historical marker you are proposing to post on the property. So it's just some event that occurred during the consultation. It's this highlighted event right here. It's sorted chronologically. I'll show you the tool in operation in a second. Okay, just a quick overview of it. Media playback window, normal playback controls, event tagging buttons for, one of the things you can do is define as many button sets as you want. One of the things I want to do with this tool is create, I've identified almost 100 different button sets that I want to create. And they're all in the background in the database of the session. And right here you can drop down and pick a button set if you've got more than one, and the buttons will change to a new set of categories. And then you can tag using those buttons. It pauses the video while you're switching between button sets.
These are categories of evaluation.
It can be absolutely anything. You define what the button means.
Okay.
It can simply be categorically or systematically documenting content in the video. it can be evaluation, it can be any kind of thing you want the event to be. We developed this in a collaborative effort with the dance department.
Of course. What?
They had exactly the same requirements. We happened to run into each other at a seminar, my colleague and I. That's where this idea came from. And we said, well, why don't we get together, get the funding, get this thing programmed. And so, and we now have clinical psych looking at it, teacher education, nursing. They do, what do you call it, health checkups they do in certain ways. They videotape. Some people in the business school teach various communications problems. It's a generic tool for capturing, tagging, indexing, annotating, and accessing what's in a video.
What was the name of the tool on this?
It's a performance analysis tool. It's right there. It's hard to see.
And this is a commercial?
It's not. This is an alpha version right now. We'll have a beta version at the end of July that we're going to distribute around campus and perhaps to a few law schools. And then I don't know what happens to it after that. The university has all the rights in it, of course.
So you guys wrote this yourself?
We have a programming team that's running it. Let's see, anything else in here? Oh, this is the editor for the textual comments. This is your list of tagged events. It's basically a database. Notice here that there's a search, there's a sort utility, and then these buttons, if you click on them, it limits this display here to just the buttons associated with that category. So then you can just play those things successively.
I'm sorry, if you click on one of those on the right-hand side, will it take you to that portion?
Jumps immediately that portion. If you click one way, it'll play it. If another, it'll pause there while you write a comment about it. Our objectives in creating this tool: one, efficiency, which we don't know yet whether it'll be more efficient. And when I use it, I tend to really get interested in the problem. I had an 11-minute video the other day. I spent 4 hours analyzing. So who knows whether the efficiency thing has been solved. If I'd just done what the students would normally do with that video, I'd have been through with it in 15 or 20 minutes. But there's so many different ways I could look at it, and this gave me a chance to look at it every different way, create new button sets, and then classify it. But actually what it does is it gives me a chance to this depth of analysis thing. Over the years, I've developed some modest amount of expertise on interviewing and counseling. And when I see a videotape, it's anything you're expert at, you see it sort of globally, but you see lots of things at once. This gives you a chance to go back and identify everything you could see in that tape as it relates to every relevant concept that might be applied to it. And so actually it's a tool for sort of expanding and making more rigorous my own expertise. Because I can use it just to study materials like this and make sure that I can get them to conform to my theory, or get my theory to conform to the materials.
Just going back to the tool, what standards for the metadata and for the API interacting with the video did you adopt?
The interaction, right now we use on Windows we use works on the Mac as well. We use the Windows Media Player as our video window, and we interact with it to control the video. We use QuickTime on the Mac, and we're going to QuickTime on Windows if we can get it working right, because it's a far more accessible piece of a video engine, actually. The metadata is XML, and there is, are you familiar with what's called the MPEG-7 standard? There's a new video standard called MPEG-7 it's a metadata standard for video. It's anticipating that video on the web needs to be searchable not just for its global content, but for specific features. If you go to Google has a video search now, but they can't do any of this. They can't play it because they haven't developed the capacity to tag the content internally. They know where it occurs, but they still haven't worked out the engine. But eventually on the internet you can find a video and find a specific point in the video and it'll play. You don't have to look for it and search around for it. The MPEG-7 is the standard that allows you to define video content. And so they have standard XML codes that you can search for, and then you can look for a specific location in the video that does a certain thing. And so we're going to MPEG-7 compliant tool, assuming that that standard will be taken. We want a tool that allowed immediate access, so you didn't have to jump around and search for things. And precision. Precision is really important, I found. If the student has to specify this portion of the video represents this event that I'm describing and my performance was done in a certain way, and I can look at exactly that portion, we can either agree or disagree on what happened in that portion of the video. It's not some amorphous thing, well, I did this one thing well in the video somewhere. So you get precision that allows for the exchange of information, convenient access to any part of the video, and the preservation of your thinking about your performance. Student, one thing I haven't mentioned, this works across videos as well. You can tag the student's work over the semester in the same session, and then click on it, and it will load the right video and jump to the right place in the video, and you can compare performance over time. And then create playlists that will group those together. You pick the playlist and say, okay, here is you doing this thing as the semester has gone on. Okay, well, and these are other features that are on the drawing board. They're still in alpha, and there are a whole lot of features that are targeted for development. We have a presentation utility that is to give you larger screening, bigger text, collapsed clips so that they're by titles. You can pick them and move them on in that way. Tagging real-time events, etc. Just a lot of, this one's the valuable one for me. That Word document was really useful whether or not I had a database behind it. Having a database cuts you off from some of the benefits of having a sequential document to look at. So the PAT tool will generate a document based on any combination of clips in any order in the same way that that Word document was, so that you can get the information out, both the button definitions and the clips. These aren't relevant. Let me show you the PAT tool real quickly here. Unfortunately, the video doesn't show in this window, but you can see the clips here. What I'm going to do, just click on a clip, turn up the volume.
You'd see me sooner, Mr. Marshall. It would have been a lot easier if you had, but I think that's all right. I think we'll be able to get everything we need.
This is an
Now,
example
where
of
did it
order
happen?
chastising.
It happened on the corner, 25th and Lake.
Here's a close question.
Now, where did it happen?
Here's another one.
Was anyone injured?
Well, I went to.
Open question.
What can I do for you today, Miss Marshall?
Statement of compliance objectives.
As I mentioned on the phone, I was in that car accident
Oh, yes.
before.
5 weeks ago. I wish you'd come to see me sooner, Miss.
That's the access you have to the video once you analyze it, created the clips, etc. Yes.
In analyzing the video of the interviewer, aren't we ignoring the impact of this on the interviewee? Wouldn't we want to see that video?
I would capture those.
Oh, good.
2 web cameras. The person being interviewed is simultaneously recorded on their web camera, and one of the features we're going to put in the PAT tool is to sync the 2 videos, and then take the sound off of the lawyer video, but you hear the client as well. So having 2 web cameras there has all kinds of benefits. If one of them goes down, you play the client one, and the lawyer at least can hear themselves performing. If you have them both, you can play them in sync. Yes.
So who's going to be the one that cuts it into individual questions and answers? Is that going to be the student or you?
Say that again?
who cuts it up like that?
Right here, this area.
There's no cutting. All those there are is links to a position. In the
Yeah, this is not a video editor.
No, he means between interviewer and interviewee.
I mean,
No, I don't think so.
so if you just left it running, if you put it,
Say that again?
if you just left it running, it would just continue on through the rest of the.
Oh, that's right. Well, no, you have a end mark here. If the person tagging it sets an end mark, it'll just play from the beginning, start time to the end time.
Well, who designates those?
The student does, or, well, anybody can. All you have to do is load the session file, and you have both editing and playback presentation modes that you can get into. So when I get the student's file, I can update it, add commentary. I can add my additional comments here, and then email or post the file back on the Sharepoint site for the student. They get an email saying this file has been reposted by the instructor.
So somehow that XML has basically your video file, a description, a start time, and an end time within that video.
Yeah, everything you see in this clip, well, there's more actually, it's stored. Each tagged event has all of that metadata in the XML file per event.
Let me make sure I understand it. It doesn't actually have the video in the XML.
No.
It just has pointers into the video.
Right.
That's right. The video, the XML is just pointers into the video.
Right.
This is just data. The other thing you can do, or the student can do, if they, you can take, for example, I have one in questioning, but there's lots of undefined categories here. The student can say, well, wait a minute, I come across something that I want to, somehow I lost my mouse, this computer's falling apart. I want to add a new dimension here called counseling overview or something. So they can add their own categories either by going to the button editor, save it, and then they have, I don't know what's happened. I swear my laptop started disintegrating this morning. You can type in this field right here. You can see where the mouse is. You can actually, you don't even have to go to the button editor. You can just type a unique label in there and it will create a new category. Won't create a button for it, but you can type in any category you want. It will create a clip over here with that category in it. Okay.
So students evaluate themselves, videotape themselves, evaluate themselves, then you evaluate their evaluation to make sure they're on track.
And then I send it back to them, or post it, and they have to review my feedback.
Okay.
And that completes the exercise.
Do you yet have a situation where students are evaluating each other?
We don't. We could, but
you,
so far I'm focusing on how far can I push them in the learning. And I found interview and counseling skill is, whether you believe it or not, is so subtle that it's worthless to get students to give feedback to each other. Even my TAs usually give worthless feedback.
How long does it take them to learn how to use this system? How much time?
This tool is very intuitive. I had an advanced counseling course this semester. We used one of the alpha copies. They all learned it on their own. I gave them just a 15-minute overview of its various features. After we get all of the utilities in, it'll be a little more complex. But basically, I'll show you. Here's the step. You create a session file, and all you do is identify the video, the subject of the video, who's reviewing it, we'll drop down list for the types of reviewers, and then you save that, and you've got a session started, and I provide the buttons and the definitions. And so what they do is they get off the Sharepoint site a session file for that exercise. Everything's predefined. All they do is load their video, and then they start clicking. And then annotating, and students know how to click and annotate type text. And that's basically it. They have to know how to use video controls, but I don't know any young person that doesn't know how to use video controls. So the basic functionality is just simple.
One of the feedback issues in real time is the ability of the student to retain feedback. So that a typical performance has 20 issues, of which you have to choose one or maybe two to try to get across. Any marked improvement here, or is that overload issue still a problem?
I can tell you, last semester, I had 12 students, 11 of them were spectacular. None of them used this tool. They all used that word template approach, but they had the video feedback. I kind of perfected the method in the first semester. Those students got savaged.
Right. Somebody's got to be the guinea.
And last semester, I just thought I saw huge gains. In fact, I had one that I brought as an example we won't have time to look at. There was a woman at the end of the semester who was absolutely spectacular. I watched that video and I sent her an email saying that is the single best performance I've ever seen by a student.
So there's a performance improvement as well as a critiquing improvement.
Yeah. No, the goal was to see the performance improvement, and I thought I saw it this last semester. I've got a doctoral student. Since we have these videos, I have videos going back 5 years of students in this class. Before they did a lot of practice, doing practice without video feedback, a lot of practice without video feedback, and then next year we'll have video feedback using the PAT tool, and it's all captured, and she's setting up, she's going to use the PAT tool as a research tool to go through and tag certain events to see in the final exercises of the semester how well did the students perform over the last 5 years.
Excellent.
Thank you.